Good morning.
Good morning.
How many of you are glad to be here this morning?
Amen.
All right. Wasn't that awesome?
Amen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I would give if I could sing like that? I just can't. So I got plenty of illustrations here this morning. So the first promise is if I'm still speaking when this runs out, you are free to get up and go. This is a literal hourglass. All right, so let's jump in. Last week we had a good discussion around, hopefully a good discussion around being the light in darkness. Not just pointing out the darkness, or not even pointing out the darkness, but being a light to those in the darkness. That is what we're called to do. And sometimes I think we get so tied up in the busyness of life, we just can't find the time to be the light. So I want to talk to you as practically as I know how about time. And how do we invest our time wisely? Time is inarguably the most valuable asset that you have. No doubt about it. You can make more money. You can make more friends. You can buy more stuff. But you can't buy more time. All of us have the same amount of time in a day, a week, a month, or a year. But there are people that invest that time better than others. Now, I can't say that I've always invested my time wisely. You can ask Linda about some of the times I invest my time, and it is college football season after all, and that needs to be a priority, just for the record. All right, I think that's in Habakkuk 2:1, I think. All right. But we're going to talk about how do we invest our time. And we live in a time, we are blessed to live in a period of time where we've had so many things to improve and give us back time. If you go back a few generations, not that long ago, or even if you go into the developing world today, a large percentage of the time is spent finding something to eat or washing the family's clothes, especially for women. If you look at women today in the third world country, they will spend the majority of their time hauling water, heating water, and then using that to wash the family's clothes. There's little time for anything else. And certainly that's important. But how do we, as Christians, in a period of time where we have so many things that improve our productivity, allow us to get things done faster, why is it that we don't seem to have enough time to do the things that really matter? Why is it that we get so distracted with the busyness of life and all of the many, many things that we get involved with, that if you fast forward a year, really mean nothing? They really mean nothing. Many times our lives get clouded with the small things of life, with the trivial, with the mundane. Now, I'm not saying these are bad things. They're not. These are things that we enjoy. But if we do those things in the improper order, that's when we start saying things like, I don't know where the time went. There's not enough time in the day for me to get done everything that's on my to-do list today. I have a father who's retired now. He's been retired now for several years. And he's always talking about he doesn't have time to do the things that he needs to do around the house. I said, you're retired. You don't work anymore. He said, yeah, I don't know how I did all this while I was working. I just don't know how I did it. But time is valuable. Time is important. Time is the most valuable asset that you have. And with that thought, I mean, it's not a surprise that the Bible, the Scriptures, the handbook or the owner's manual for life is not silent on this subject. So let's talk about it. All right, let's jump in here. Let me make a slide adjustment. All right, Ephesians. Ephesians was written by the Apostle Paul roughly in the early 60s, let's say. Most estimates would say that it was written in the year between 60 and 63 AD. Now, this was written to a church that Paul had established in Ephesus. Most of you have heard that. And this was written largely 30-ish years after the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Why is that important? Well, this is a side fact. A lot of college professors will tell you that much of the New Testament was written long after everybody that could tell you whether it was true or not, they were long gone. And history will show that legends will start to emerge about 70, 80 years after an event. Because after that, all of the eyewitnesses are dead. So the legends will start to emerge. I mean, I can remember studying when I was in high school and college, we studied the Holocaust. Right? Well, and just recently, now that we're 80-ish years after the events of the Holocaust, you're starting to hear legends emerge that, that Holocaust thing, it really didn't happen. It really didn't happen. You know what? Because most of the eyewitnesses, the vast majority of the eyewitnesses are now dead. Well, so the fact that Ephesians was written 30 years after the resurrection, there were people that could look at what was written and that Paul wrote and say, no, that's not right. I can take you to where the body is. They were alive. They saw the crucifixion. But the fact that it was written 30 years after, to me, is a strong fact on the reliability of the Gospels. That was free. Has nothing to do with time. So, Ephesians 5:15. Be very careful then how you live, how you spend your time. Not as unwise, but as wise. I think Paul is challenging us today to redeem and get value out of the fullness of your time, your life. I can tell you, the older you get, the faster time goes. I have 31 years ago, I began my career here. I moved here from Blacksburg, Virginia, and started my career. It seems like yesterday. And yet it's been 31 years. 31 years. Time can get away from you. So if you don't think about how do you invest your time, pretty soon you're going to look back and it's going to run out. That's the reason I really like the hourglass. So we've created a perception in the world that we use watches, right? And watch keeps going around and around and around and around forever. It gives us the illusion that time is infinite. It's not. Eventually, just like the sands in the hourglass, time runs out. Time runs out. So it's important to think about how do you invest your time. Now, some of you are getting really a little bit nervous. It says Keith's going to tell me to take away all the things that I like to do that bring joy to my life. The playing the golf, the hunting, the fishing, the driving cars. But you're going to tell me to take all that out of my life, and that's not the case. You are meant to have joy and fun and recreation in your life. Okay? So take a deep breath. It's okay. Today we're going to talk about how do I have a full life, so that when I look back in 1 week or 1 year or 10 years, I don't look back with regrets. I'm going to challenge you to think about what are the things that if I don't get done, pick your period of time. If I don't get this done in the next 6 months, I'm going to look back and I'm going to be very disappointed in myself. And make sure you're investing the time in those things that you think, I've got to get done, I need to get done. Because these things are important. Important not because they bring me fun, but important because it will matter a year from now, or a decade from now. Or ultimately, it will matter when I'm no longer here. I think that's what Paul is telling us when he says, be careful then how you live, not as wise but unwise, making the most of every opportunity. So guys, we are all extremely conscious of time. Some of you are thinking, is Keith going to let us out on time? What time's lunch? I know it. You don't have to, nobody has to raise their hand. I just know it. I can see it in your eyes. I can see it. The more important question is, what am I doing with my time? Our time here is limited. Right? If you go to cemeteries, you'll see dates with born dates and died dates. The question is, what did you do? And there's a lady wrote a poem, I can't remember her name, about what did you do with your dash? Yeah. What did you do with the time that you were given? That you were given. Now, you're not here just to exist. And we spent quite a bit of time several weeks ago talking about you are here for a purpose. You are here to make a difference in the world that lives beyond you. And we live in a culture today where everything around us, the advertising that we see, the places that we go, just scream, it's all about you. You know, if you will buy this car, you'll be popular. If you drink this beer, people are going to like you. You'll be attractive to the girls. Okay? It's all about you. Far from what Scripture teaches us, isn't it? All right, so let's keep going. David, Psalms 90:12. Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of, let's say that together, a heart of wisdom. What's wisdom? Beyond knowledge, isn't it? It's knowing what to do and then actually doing it. Wisdom is looking at the perspective of your life and investing it wisely. Beyond yourself. Beyond yourself. Job, a person's days are determined. You have decreed the number of his months and have set limits that he cannot exceed. When you realize that there are bookends to your life, and you take that seriously, you think deeply about it, it leads to a life of purpose. Done well, it will inform the decisions that you make today, next week, next month, and next year. It helps us live with a sense of destiny, that the life that we lead, the choices we make, matter. So today we're going to talk about how do you get the most out of your time. And I said, I'm going to make this as absolutely as practical as I know how to make it. All right? So we're going to talk about what are your big rocks. What are your priorities? So let me, I'm going to give an illustration that some of you've probably seen before. But this container, this is your life. Or maybe it's a period of life, a season of life, a week, a month. But let's say this is your life. And all of these little things are the things that we do that consume our time. These are the things that we do that are, in the scheme of things, unimportant. These are things like spending hours watching television every day. These are things like shopping. Shopping is evil. Shopping. Driving around. Looking at houses that you're never going to buy. Think about it. These are things, and everybody could make up their own list. These are the things that fill our days and our hours that if you look back 2 years from now are of zero consequence. These are the things that fill our time. And these big rocks are the things that you would say are important. We're going to start with what you define as important. So what are some of the important things? I'll start us off. What are some important things on how you spend your time? How about time with your kids, your spouse? What about time you spend serving others? What about time that you spend educating yourself? Studying, improving, growing personally. That's a big rock. Your job. Our job is a big rock. Maybe there's this opportunity that you're trying to take advantage of in your job that will make a difference for the company and for you personally and your family. Maybe there's the priorities of taking time to relax, recreate. Is that a big rock? Taking time to get away. What you find is if you're not very careful, the important things don't fit. And what suffers when we get so busy that our life is overflowing, it's gone beyond full. We want a full life. It's gone to overflowing. What tends to suffer the most? Your relationships, I would argue, suffer the most. Whether it's family, friends, God, those things suffer. So let me just illustrate it in a different way. So let's start differently. Let's start by doing the big things first. Understanding the big rocks first. So, time with family, children, spouse, recreation, job, that big opportunity at work. All the things, and whatever, I want you to say whatever you define as important, we're going to put in first. Now we're going to take this a little different direction in a minute. What I'm talking about so far applies to the Christian or the non-Christian, the follower of Jesus and the unbeliever. If you're not a follower of Jesus, set these priorities and your life will be better. Okay. So you do all these things, you get the big rocks first. You make sure before you even talk about all the things that we enjoy doing, these are not bad things. They only become bad when they're done first, when they're treated as the priority. So if I've done this right, you'll be able to fill in all of the other things as well. Sometimes you got to shake your life a little bit, don't you? All right, let's pretend. Okay. Got a good full life.
Yeah.
What didn't go in? The things that didn't matter anyway. How's that for an ad lib? The things that didn't matter anyway. Now, like I said, if you're not a follower of Jesus, what I just told you will absolutely make your life better. If you're a follower of Jesus, you're challenged to take this one step further. God says, I am the big rock. I go in first. Does God say that I got to go in first because I'm an arrogant God? Why does God tell you? Why would He say, put me in first? Why would He say that? You can throw something out. You can pretend. Why would God say, I got to go in first? Because God knows that when you put Him in first, He will help set the priorities for everything else. Putting God first will not make you less productive in your life. Putting God first will make you more productive than you've ever been. Now, why is it so hard to do that? Everything in our culture is screaming, it's about you. Do the things that make you happy in the moment. God's saying, no, the way to true happiness, the way to true joy is putting me first and helping me order the priorities of your life. Many of you have heard me say a lot of times, my priorities as a person have not always been where they need to be. And my priorities are not perfect today, but they're better than they were 20 years ago. I hope. I think, I know they are. Putting God first. So why would we do that? Well, let's look at what Jesus said. This is Jesus in His very first sermon. It's called the Sermon on the Mount. A piece of it, don't worry. It'll take us all of this time and more to go through it all. So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? What shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things. And your heavenly Father, He knows you need these things. So, do we, as followers of Jesus, really believe that? God knows what you need. Don't worry about what you eat, what you drink, what you wear. Do we believe Jesus knows we need these things? Really? If we do, then the next verse is the logical conclusion if you really believe these things. And it's a verse that Linda and I have grown up with our entire lives. But seek first His kingdom, His righteousness. And you know what? All these other things, you're going to get those too. You believe that? Do you believe that? If you believe that, I'm going to challenge you over the next period of time to really think deeply about your priorities. What are your 3 big rocks? How are you investing your time? Are you investing your time in things that, after you're gone, will make a difference in the world? Or are you investing your time so that this time next year you're going to look back and say, I'm really glad I made that decision? Or are you going to look back in the year and say, I wish I had made that decision? Put God first. Genuinely seek His wisdom. And what does the Scripture tell us? Seek it, you're going to find it. If you lack wisdom, ask for it. But you got to be willing to listen to the answer. How many of us have asked for something from God, and when we got the answer, it wasn't quite what we hoped it would be? So therefore we said, that's really not God talking to me. I'm still listening. Seek His wisdom. Wisely investing your time will make an impact on the world. I titled this message, The Magic Washing Machine, and I talked about in prior generations that much of the time, especially for women in the world, was spent washing the family clothes. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to end here with a story that talks about investing time and the value that investing time can have on others in your life. And it's by a man by the name of Hans Rosling. Probably you've never heard of him. Hans Rosling, he actually passed away in February of this year. And he's a pretty famous statistician in my world. I'm a data person. Statisticians are now called data scientists, and they make a lot of money. But he was a famous statistician. He was a physician and a pretty popular public speaker. And he tells a story that he calls the magic washing machine. And it goes something like this. He said when Hans was a small boy, he said that he can remember his mother spending many, many hours every day washing the family clothes. And the work was laborious. I mean, it was hard, it was unrelenting. I mean, she had to haul the water, she would have to heat the water, and then she would wash the clothes. And it went on day after day. It had been going on for generations. And then one day the family got an automatic washing machine. And the grandmother who was living in the home, once the washing machine was installed and plugged in and the water was hooked up to it, she was so excited that she sat down in front of the washing machine and said, "Can I push the button?" Because she spent her life washing the clothes. And the whole family gathered around and watched the washing machine automatically wash the clothes. Now, what made the washing machine magic was not the fact that it automatically washed the clothes. What made the washing machine magic was what it gave Hans' mother. It gave her time. Now, she didn't invest that time watching TV or playing video games. Instead, she used that time to take young Hans to the library. She taught him to read. She instilled in him a love of books and a love of learning. And Hans would go on to become a PhD, a doctor, a physician, a popular public speaker. And he would say the time that his mother got back was invested in him, and it changed his family tree. Not because he automatically washed the clothes, because she was now able to invest her time in something bigger than herself. So I tell you that story to challenge you to find ways to invest your time in others. Invest your time in things that matter for eternity. Putting God at the center of your priorities will help you prioritize everything else. And there's one thing I can absolutely guarantee you. You will look back some point in the future, and if you do this and you act on it, you will look back and you will be glad you did. There will be no regrets. On the other hand, you may get to a point in life if you don't do this, and all the small things consume your time, and you don't make time for the big rocks, you'll look back and wish that you had.